Welcome to Stable Dash for Bluechip Edition, recorded at the Bluechip Conference here in Vienna. I'm Chiara Munaretto, and if you're new here, this show is all about stablecoins. Today, we're exploring Ethereum, the settlement layer for stablecoins, and we're here with James Smith, Head of Ecosystem at the Ethereum Foundation. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me today.
A pleasure. So let's dive right into what the Ethereum Foundation is and how is the Ethereum Foundation approaching stablecoins in general.
So I'll give you a bit of a background that the Ethereum Foundation used to be, and still is, a very research-led organization and was building a lot of the infrastructure and protocol layer of Ethereum. It is one of many actors that does this as well today. And we have, in the last 7 months, branched out and started offering more support to the ecosystem as well. What does that mean? That's us talking to founders, stablecoin projects, different infrastructure projects, and being able to support the ecosystem more as an enabler as well. And this is quite a step forward for us in the ecosystem.
And so far, with all the different founders, stablecoin projects you've been talking to, is there anything you've been providing in particular, whether it's research help, grants, or helping to advance with understanding the space better?
So on the grants front, we have previously provided some research grants, and maybe there's a mechanism that actually is a good open source public tool that lots of people can use. However, we found that the stablecoin market has grown so big that we can step away from having to support it financially a lot of the time. We exist to fund things that make zero commercial sense to be funded. And we also take out, small bets on different things as well. In terms of how we've been supporting some stablecoin projects, this might be from introductions, amplifying some of the work they've been doing. So there's a decentralized stablecoin. And I believe that the great thing about Ethereum is the innovation you can build on top of it, and is the multiple different models you can have with stablecoins is what is building such a large attraction to people wanting to launch on Ethereum.
And when it comes down to the type of projects that you bet on, as for example, we see you're here at Bluechip, so I'm sure you respect it as a project. Is there something in particular that you look for in this stablecoin projects?
Not particularly. It's a permissionless protocol, so anyone can build on top of it. Bluechip, when Ben was first starting it up, was actually a project that we supported and to help it get it off the ground.
Yeah.
We thought it's a great public good to have a stablecoin ratings agency. And I feel like it's doing some really good work to bring a lot of the right questions to the table as people start to investigate stablecoin usage.
And if we look more at the market, I was just reading yesterday that the monthly stablecoin volume in October for Ethereum really it's 2.82 trillion, which
it's ballooning
went
every month. Yeah.
from like 45% from September, which was 1.94 trillion. So it's pretty significant how much volume in stablecoins is growing. What does you think that this means for Ethereum global role in digital money, in facilitating digital money?
I think we're in this phase where it's not just crypto native reasons for being on Ethereum. There's actually real economic activity taking off as well. You've got some amazing use cases today. Morpho just integrated uranium, and most people don't have an efficient way to access uranium. They have to buy either a fund which charges a management fee. They can't buy it at spot uranium, whereas Morpho, you can now buy uranium spot, and then you can take collateral out. Uranium's not just sitting there. You can actually borrow off of your asset as well. And that's attracting people to say, hey, I actually want to start using blockchain for these reasons. So we're starting to see a lot of more use cases coming on board, which I feel is also helping.
So what do you think that makes Ethereum so attractive to be somehow the home for many stablecoin projects?
I think Ethereum is very credibly neutral, and that is something that I believe we should double down on even more.
Yeah.
So anyone can permissionally launch their stablecoin. Then they can also interact and integrate with DeFi as well, which is why I think we get such a big traction there. Plus, there's many different trust models you can actually adopt. You can have synthetic stablecoins through to non-US dollar denominated stablecoins, different baskets of collateral. So I think that because there's so many different models people can experiment with, it's such an interesting time at the moment to watch this happen.
And for the audience who's maybe less familiar with stablecoins and they're more coming from the traditional finance, what does it mean to issue a stablecoin on Ethereum? Can we somehow try to break it to...
So I actually If you want the hot take from me,
I do want a hot take from you.
I think actually the payment stack is being unbundled. Because previously it just used to get sent into a bank and the bank used to handle everything in the back end.
Yeah.
And that had some efficiencies, but it also has some really big inefficiencies when you start doing cross-border payments. It takes 5 days to settle, all of these things that are talked about. By unbundling it, you're seeing that you can actually get way more efficient by having a user send to another user or to another company. And then you've got different payment rails and different payment stacks you can use. So that's why stablecoins is much more efficient in lots of use cases. However, that's why I think that stablecoins are taking off. And that's how I'm trying to explain it, I guess, to someone that's not familiar with why a stablecoin is useful. There's somebody on our team that actually is from Afghanistan. And this is a really good example. Parents use stablecoins, and he actually can't get a bank account where he is because of his Afghanistan passport. So he has to use stablecoins to pay his rent. He has to use stablecoins to buy groceries.
Yeah.
And he has to get paid in stablecoins by the Ethereum Foundation. So there's a ton of people in this situation, if not billions, that can't get bank accounts, and this gives them access as well. So there's a whole economic activity which was never accessible to the world is now coming online.
And when it comes down to the actual issuance of the stablecoin on Ethereum from the issuer's perspective side, how is their experience in using Ethereum? Because you said it's fully permissionless, so anyone can issue their own stablecoins. Does the Ethereum Foundation has a supporting role in that as well? If a new issuer were to issue stablecoins on Ethereum?
So we do get projects coming to us, and a lot of the time we can help them with technical research. We can help them with introductions. The worst thing that they could possibly do is bring their stablecoin on chain and then no one uses it, or it sits idle. One of the biggest innovations, I think, is that your assets should never be idle. And I feel like with a big stablecoin, I was just talking to the 9 European banks building their Euro stablecoin. If they decide to build on top of Ethereum, we can help them integrate with many different DeFi protocols that will make that much more attractive to the users as well.
And so detaching a little bit from Ethereum and talking more about the different L2s that can be built on top of Ethereum for stablecoins specifically, whether it's for payment, for example. Have you seen any particular L2 that is building this that you're more bullish on? Or do you think that we're still far from developing such payment rails specifically built for stablecoins, if that's even the objective?
I think there's some really good options. You've got Celo. They're doing a lot of work on boots on the ground in Africa. And I recently was posting about UNICEF and the Danish Refugee Council. They actually send billions around the world each year, but some of that money gets lost in traditional banking, whereas it's very transparent. There's been some United Nations projects actually delivering money to the Ukraine, and it's shown that it's been very transparent and 100% of the money gets to the people it needs to get to. I think there's some really specific use cases that are quite good there. Celo is doing great work there. You've got Codex, which is a new L2, which is particularly focused on stablecoin payments. So we're seeing lots of work there. And then it all settles down onto Ethereum, which is what a lot of people trust as well.
And when it comes down to facilitating the adoption of stablecoins or simply the infrastructure and the protocols around how Ethereum itself is structured, is there any role the Ethereum Foundation plays in trying to provide extra advice or even collecting the needs from the community in what the Ethereum blockchain itself may need to, in terms of stack itself, in order to build on top of?
You mean in terms of infrastructure feedback?
Yes, exactly.
We are getting much better at it, I would say. Again, in this reorganization that the Ethereum Foundation had, we're reaching out to a lot more projects. We're getting feedback from them, and then we're feeding this back to different researchers and client teams as well. So we're definitely getting better at it, but there's definitely room to go there as well. However, we try to build things that will be neutral and will not negatively or positively enhance anybody at all.
Yeah, so really to give the opportunity to everyone to use Ethereum as they please without you really taking a stand on what should be built or not be built.
Yep, so we don't pick sides, and we should see us as an ecosystem enabler that will try to support everybody, but we'll do it in a fair way as well.
And you mentioned before the consortium, for example, that of course Ethereum is one of the options on which they could be building the stablecoin. But in this case, of course, we're talking about institutions and not retail, at least at the start. So how do you think that the permissionless aspect of Ethereum could benefit such project, since most of the consortium projects usually start being in a permission blockchain instead?
So I think on a public blockchain, you will get much more adoption because you can actually choose who you want to work with and do deals with. So other companies like Chinese manufacturers could come along and you can start paying them on stable coins as well. And there's it gives so much more freedom. It doesn't mean that you have to do business with everybody like in the real world, but you have this ability that is immediately open. The other thing I think is great is that you could get an 18-year-old coder from Italy just turn up and do something really innovative with that Euro stablecoin infrastructure, and that Euro stablecoin infrastructure can then say, that's really cool, we're going to adopt it. If they build behind a closed wall, no one can build anything innovative for them. And I think that's the real unlock of blockchain.
And so on this side of connecting, let's say the retail with institutions or just like builders with projects, how is Ethereum facilitating that? Is it really through the community itself, so the great ecosystem that you managed to create, or do you also facilitate the connection between great solutions and whoever may need access to these solutions? So let's take the example of the builder in Italy that wants to help the consortium based in the Netherlands. Will you be the one spotting it and helping out? Or is it more a natural flow of how the community is built that everyone is trying to help each other?
I hope it's both, to be honest with you. I think if you look at Morpho again, actually it was created because they were playing around with Uniswap.
Yeah.
And they were building on top of Uniswap. And then they spotted an opportunity to actually build their own protocol. And I think that's such a great story if someone who has this innovation can then just say, oh, there's actually an opportunity here. Uniswap was built in the same way as well. Hayden saw an innovation and ran with it. These projects have actually come and talked to the Ethereum Foundation.
Yes.
And they've all become hugely successful. And I think that's a mark of success that we don't have to be involved all of the time.
Yes. So it's really the power of the community itself that believes so much in all building on top of Ethereum that they know they can access and build on top of each other and just advance more as a community than just as a single project.
Open source software, in my mind, gets a undeserved lack of acknowledgement for the amount of economy they boost. Because people just turn up and build open source software. This software is then used in nearly every company around the world. And I feel like this innovation is unlocking, this blockchain can unlock a lot of this as well in the financial world too.
Yeah, I think that's something very interesting as well that I actually wanted to touch upon with you, because of course Ethereum is like very decentralized and that's the claim agnostic and so on. But as it becomes really one of the central piece of how stablecoins could move around the globe and institutions will be onboarded on Ethereum as well, how are you planning to keep the decentralization aspect as more institutions jump on board and perhaps want to have a bigger control or a bigger role?
I think it's a great question. And with EIPs, such as Ethereum Improvement Protocols, you can just show up and start writing them. So if you work at Google, you can write them. If you're the 18-year-old coder in Italy, you can write them. So it doesn't require any special access. You cannot buy your way into it. That's, to me, is a fantastic situation. One of the reasons we're very resilient is because we have multiple client teams, and it's very similar to how I see the internet. You have many implementations across one standard. This means that if one part of the internet ever breaks, it just gets routed around it. And Ethereum works in a very similar way. So I feel like as more and more companies come on, they're actually choosing Ethereum because of that neutrality. I'll give you the example of if Mercedes built a blockchain, BMW wouldn't want to use it for the obvious reasons.
Yes.
So the neutral playground is where they meet.
Yeah, but then in this case, because I think like in 2 years ago or so, when I was working more like into enterprise blockchain adoption projects, I think a lot of companies were actually pretty interested in building their own permission blockchain because they were like, oh, privacy, no, we want to do it closed. All of them failed basically, and now all of these projects are actually looking at open source projects or like at least like building on public blockchains. But the thing is that of course, considering like supply chain, for example, you have many parties. So you need all parties to agree to start using a stable coin or like an infrastructure that it's open source. So do you think that there should be a mindset shift coming into the minds of enterprises, of people in general, that public doesn't mean a lack of privacy?
Totally. There's 40 people inside the Ethereum Foundation working on privacy.
Yeah.
There's probably over 100, 120 projects building privacy in Ethereum as well. So there's many choices. There's lots of layer 2s that actually offer very good privacy solutions as well. So I feel like there's tons and tons of options coming, and there's already some really good ones that exist. I think that will be a educational thing to really get through to enterprises.
Yeah.
But once that comes, I think in 12 or 24 months, and this is some of the new things we're starting to do is like privacy for enterprises one-day conference in Zurich, privacy for enterprises one-day conference in New York, and we can really explain a lot to them there. One last point on your public versus permission.
Yeah.
I've been to a lot of conferences and I've had a lot more conversations, and people finally are starting to understand a lot of it. The problem with lots of things you just highlighted, the organizations that have failed with private blockchains aren't that keen to write reports about them and share them publicly, because there's a lot of millions that have gone to waste there as well. A lot of big companies have tried it and they have found big issues of adoption. Competitors don't want to use it, so they end up all fighting, and it ends up getting very split over a neutral infrastructure. The internet is a great example of this because no one is trying to recreate the internet. It's an infrastructure. But it moved everyone to this app section where everyone builds on top of it.
So do you think in this case power is the black sheep here? When someone tries to have more power, that's when it compromises the actual scope of the project itself?
You could say so, yeah. I think
it brings us back to decentralization, of course.
Yeah, because if you look at cloud computing, I think 85% of cloud computing is run by 3 companies around the world. So that's a huge issue should your technology want to get switched off. Or if it is accidentally switched off, you can't do anything about it.
Closing down with one teaser, perhaps, since of course Ethereum has its own distribution and it's probably the biggest blockchain out there, would Ethereum ever consider to launch its own stablecoin?
A controversial question.
Yeah.
I think no. It would never. It would bring up so many issues. So Ethereum doesn't want to enshrine a stablecoin because having multiple different stablecoins is resilient. Having lots of different experiments is resilient, and it's an infrastructure to allow people to build an experiment and to have different areas on there. And actually, your question highlights why Ethereum is so beautiful in this way, is that it doesn't decide. You can permissionally build on top of it rather than anything being enshrined inside of it. That's never the goal for Ethereum. And Ethereum Foundation doesn't run Ethereum. There are many actors involved, and that would just never get through.
Yeah. If someone needs to get in touch with the Ethereum Foundation, how can they do it?
We're pretty active on Twitter these days. We're also on LinkedIn. You can also go to our website and contact us. We now have an enterprise team. We have a founder success team, and we have an app relations team. We'll all be in DevConnect in Buenos Aires in a couple of weeks' time.
I wish I could come there as well, but too far.
So yeah, you can definitely reach out and find us. You can stick my email at the bottom of this video as well.
Absolutely, we'll do so. Well, thank you very much for being here, and thank you all for spending the time together, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.